Welcome, and thank you for being here. You found your way to the Sneakerhead Chef's Sleep Time Stories, and I'm truly grateful you chose to spend this quiet moment with me. I am your host, the Sneakerhead Chef, and tonight we've curated something special just for you. This is a space designed for rest, for slowing down, for letting the day gently fade away. As you listen, allow the rhythm of my voice to guide you into a calmer state, one where your mind can soften, your body can loosen, and sleep can arrive naturally, without effort. Tonight, we've compiled some of our favorite stories into one continuous experience, thoughtfully arranged to help you drift into peaceful, uninterrupted rest. These stories were created with intention to relax you psychologically, mentally, and physically so that sleep feels inevitable. And welcome. In this episode, we'll be visiting three stories from the After Hours Kitchen, a place that exists when the lights are low, when the noise has quieted, and when creativity, reflection, and comfort take center stage. Our stories tonight include the After Hours Kitchen, After the Rambla, Heat in the Quarter, and Smoke from the Sound. As these stories unfold, you'll encounter recipes, style, sneakers, and a cast of familiar characters, chefs, creatives, colleagues, and friends, each woven gently into the rhythm of the night. To help set the mood, you may notice the sound of rain playing softly in the background. Let it fall naturally, like a steady breath, creating a cocoon of calm around you. Every story you'll hear tonight was written by A.T. and narrated by me, the Sneakerhead Chef, and we're truly thankful that you're here, listening to some of our most cherished stories. Now, before we begin, I invite you to get settled. Find your most comfortable position. Snuggle deeper into the bed. Let the weight of the blankets ground you. Allow your shoulders to drop, your jaw to unclench, your breathing to slow. As you listen, the setting of these stories may feel familiar. You might recognize the sounds of a nearby kitchen, the hum of equipment, the soft rhythm of movement, the comforting aromas of food, spices, and warmth. These are the places many of us return to, not just for nourishment, but for peace. Places we love. Places that feel like home. Places where passion and comfort coexist. Let these stories take you back to your favorite moment in the kitchen. A time when everything felt steady. When your hands knew exactly what to do. When your mind felt present, focused, at ease. As your head sinks gently into the pillow, notice how your neck begins to release. Your shoulders soften, your back unwinds, your legs grow heavier, more relaxed with every breath. Give your body permission to rest now, to finally let go of the day, to release any lingering tension, aches, or fatigue, knowing that with each word, each pause, each breath, they begin to fade away. There's nothing else you need to do, nowhere else you need to be. Just listen and rest and allow yourself to drift slowly, comfortably into a deep, soothing sleep. When you're ready, let's step quietly into the After Hours Kitchen. The After Hours Kitchen after the Rambla. The air in Barcelona had its own pulse, not rushed, not urgent, just steady. It wasn't only the sound of scooters threading through narrow streets or the soft rise and fall of voices drifting from cafes. It was a quiet hum of a city that stayed awake just enough to take care of you. A city that fed you when you needed it. A city that understood hunger of every kind. They landed that morning, the light already wide and golden. No rush to unpack. Just bags set down in a small apartment tucked near the Gothic quarter. Stone floors cool beneath their feet. Windows open. Air is moving slowly through the linen curtains. Jun stepped out first, Adidas Spezial in navy suede, worn soft from travel. Shoes that had already seen airports, platforms, and long waits at baggage claim. Aya followed. White Reebok Club C85s, scuffed at the toe, proof of cities walks patiently. Theo slipped into black Vans slip-ons, the soles worn flat and familiar. Lila last, Nike Air Max 90. Barcelona, colors catching the morning light like they had been waiting for it. No plan, no schedule, just movement. The first stop came naturally, the way it always did. A small cafe on a side street, the kind you might miss if you were walking too fast. Inside, trays of ensaimadas were being pulled from the oven, sugar dusted lightly over their coils, still warm, still giving off steam. They stood at the counter, elbows resting easily, cortados served in small glass cups, the coffee bitter and smooth, the pastry soft and sweet. No one spoke for a moment. They didn't need to. The day was still settling into them. Outside again, they drifted toward La Rambla, pulled by the slow current of people. The wide pedestrian street opened up, breathing space between buildings. Flower stalls spilled color into the air. Reds, yellows, whites layered without intention. A man painted quick caricatures under a striped awning. A street performer tuned a guitar without urgency. Somewhere nearby, the briny scent of fried calamari passed by and then faded, replaced by citrus, then coffee, then something grilled. Time stretched, not long, just wide. By midday, the neon red glow of Street X02 pulled them in. The entrance buzzed, alive without being loud. Inside, the air was thick with scent. Seared meat, smoke, acid, and sweetness all layered together. Chef David Munoz moved through the open kitchen with purpose, plates leaving the past like punctuation marks, duck dumplings slick with XO sauce, grilled octopus curled tight, resting on paprika-laced mashed potatoes, roasted suckling pig, skin crisp, pickled onions sharp enough to wake you up mid-bite. Jun leaned against the counter, eyes following every movement. "This is chaos in perfect timing," he said quietly. Aya nodded, fork hovering. "I don't know whether to eat this or frame it." They did both in their own way. Every plate was empty by the time they stepped back into the daylight. From there, they walked slowly to Mercado de la Boqueria. If Street XO was a theater, Boqueria was truth. Raw, immediate, alive. Jamon Iberico hung from hooks, fat glistening under the lights. Blood oranges stacked carefully, their skins tight and deep in color. Razor clams rested over ice, shells still holding seawater. Juice stands lined the aisle, glass after glass glowing magenta, green, gold. They stopped at a Pinixos bar wedged between seafood counters. Small plates crowded the counter, anchovies skewered with olives, chorizo curled at the edges, tortilla wedges waiting patiently under dollops of aiolis. Each bite was simple. Each bite is complete. Aya wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "We're making these tonight." Theo raised an eyebrow. "And the octopus from Street XO?" Jun smiled. "We'll do both. Pinchos first, octopus after." By late afternoon, their bags were heavy. Baguettes wrapped in paper. Chorizo links are still warm. Anchovies packed in oil. Peppers, potatoes, parsley, and garlic. A whole octopus, cleaned, faintly smelling of the sea. Pink sauce assembly, step by step. Slice baguette into 1-inch pieces. Toast lightly until just crisp. For anchovy olive skewers, skewer an anchovy fillet, a green olive, and a strip of roasted red pepper.
Rest on the bread, drizzle with good olive oil. For chorizo with roasted pepper, grill sliced chorizo until edges curl. Place on bread with roasted pepper. Sprinkle with smoked paprika. For tortilla pinchos, slice a prepped Spanish tortilla into wedges. Top with garlic aioli and parsley. While Theo and Aya assembled, Jun started the octopus. Grilled octopus with paprika potatoes. In a large pot, bring salted water to a boil with half an onion, 2 bay leaves, and a splash of red wine vinegar. Dip the octopus in 3 times before submerging fully. To curl the tentacles, June explained. Simmer for 45 minutes until tender. Remove and pat dry. Heat a grill pan until smoky. Brush octopus with olive oil. Grill until charred in spots. Layla boiled potatoes until tender, then mash with smoked paprika, olive oil, cream, and sea salt until smooth and orange. The plates came together like memory. Potatoes first, then octopus, then a drizzle of olive oil and a dusting of paprika. Aya pulled Catalan crema from the fridge. Milk steeped with lemon zest, cinnamon, and vanilla bean, thickened and chilled. She sprinkled sugar over the top and torched and knit until it snapped under the spoon. They ate in a slow circle, alternating bites of pinchos and octopus, trading stories about the market and the way Chef Munoz moved in his kitchen. The table smelled of smoke, garlic, citrus, and sweet cream. When the plate were cleared, they stepped back out to the Barcelona night. La Rambla was still alive. Couples walking arm in arm, kids chasing each other between the stalls. They wandered toward the waterfront, stopping for a vermouth at a bar with no menu, just a smile and a pour. The water shimmered under the lights, the city moving at its own unhurried pace. Back in the apartment, shoes left by the door, Leela thought of the day, the chaos of Street XO, the cool stone floors of Boqueria, the char from the grill. Recipe. Recap. Grilled octopus with paprika potatoes that serves 4 guests. Tenderize the octopus in boiling salted water with half an onion, bay leaves, and vinegar. Dip octopus 3 times, then simmer 45 minutes until tender. Now, to prep the potatoes, boil 3 to 4 medium potatoes until tender. Mash with 1/4 cup olive oil, 2 to 3 tablespoons cream, 1 teaspoon smoked paprika, salt to taste. To grill the octopus, pat dry, brush with olive oil, grill over high heat until charred in spots. Let's plate. Spoon potatoes onto plates, top with octopus, drizzle with olive oil, sprinkle with paprika. Best enjoyed with pinchos and a glass of vermouth, even if you're nowhere near La Rambla. Some heat never cooled.
Barcelona doesn't really end, it lingers in the echo of footsteps down Las Ramblas, in the clink of glasses raised under amber streetlights, in the scent of olive oil and smoke that drifts long after the plates are cleared. That night wasn't just a story. It was a place I've walked, a table I've sat at, a kitchen I've been honored to witness. I've wandered those streets after midnight. I've dined in restaurants where the fire is treated with reverence, where recipes carry generations, where food feels like memory being served in real time. Travel has given me perspective. It has allowed me to experience these beautiful cities not just as a visitor, but as a chef observing culture through flavor. And every city has its own rhythm. Barcelona hums, it breathes in warm Mediterranean air. It moves with ease. But there's another rhythm waiting, another kind of heat, thicker, closer, heavier in the air, a place where the night wraps around you, where kitchens don't just cook, they pulse. From the Rambla to the Quarter, from soft candlelight and shared plates, to the slow simmer of something deeper. Let the breeze fade. Feel the temperature rise. Tonight, we step into the heat. As promised, next we want to present to you Midnight Mise en Place, heat in the quarter inspired by the streets of New Orleans. The quarter was restless that night, not loud, not chaotic, just awake in its own way. There's a difference. The air held the weight of the day's heat, pressing gently between buildings older than memory. Brick darkened by humidity. Iron balconies curved like quiet witnesses. Neon signs blinked against damp stone, their reflections pooling in the street below. Somewhere down the block, oil crackled in a fryer. Somewhere else, a trumpet carried a long, bending note that seemed to stretch the night a little wider. Laughter rose, softened, and disappeared. Layla slipped into the alley behind the kitchen and paused before opening the door. Even through the wood, she could feel it. Warmth layered over warmth. She pressed her shoulder against the frame and stepped inside. Butter, garlic, a trace of citrus hanging low in the air. The kitchen lights were low but steady. Stainless steel caught a soft glow. The hum of refrigeration filled the background like a distant current.
She wore a sleeveless linen Hedley and Bennett apron, dyed the color of dark chicory coffee, tied loosely at the waist. On her feet, Jordan 1 low shattered backboard, leather creased, soles worn thin in places. Shoes that had crossed airports, cobblestones, prep lines. Shoes that carried stories without asking for attention.
Jun stood at the prep table, hands moving with steady precision as he unwrapped Gulf oysters packed in crushed ice. The shells were rough and irregular, still faintly smelling of tide and open water. His white Nike Air Monarchs were practical, dependable, worn smooth where the floor had shaped them over time. Aya followed a moment later, bouncing a warm paper bag from Shea against their hip. Steam slipped from the top when she set it down. Sesame, roasted spice, tahini. She stepped out of her faded red Converse Chuck 70s and left them near the prep sink, flexing her toes against cool tile.
Theo came in last, rain still clinging to his jacket collar. His New Balance 550 white/green tapped lightly as he crossed the room. He placed a Café du Monde bag gently on the counter and gave it a quiet pat.
For later, he said, almost to himself, they didn't rush. The quarter had its own rhythm, and so did this kitchen.
John laid the oysters over fresh ice, arranging them carefully. Lila set a cast iron skillet over flame and waited. She didn't hurry the heat. Butter slid into the pan and melted slowly, turning glossy before beginning to foam. Garlic followed, releasing its scent in waves. Parsley darkened slightly. A squeeze of lemon brightened everything at once.
She spooned the mixture over each oyster, the liquid pooling inside the shells. Parmesan dusted across the tops. The tray disappeared under the broiler until the edges bubbled and browned, the surface turning golden and just crisp. Aya opened containers of hummus thick with tahini and smoothed it across ceramic plates with the back of a spoon. Labna shimmered beneath olive oil and za'atar. Pillowy pita tore easily in their hands. Pickled vegetables brought sharpness. Roasted eggplant added quiet depth.
Theo built sazeracs with deliberate care. Rye whiskey, bitters, a trace of absinthe clinging to chilled glass. The scent alone felt like the quarter. Sharp, herbal, unmistakable.
They ate without ceremony.
An oyster.
A sip. Warm bread dragged slowly through labne. Conversation unfolded in layers. Stories of late nights, missed flights, early prep shifts, Cafe du Monde at 3 in the morning, powdered sugar hanging in the air like fog beneath street lamps. June's main dish came next, blackened redfish, crust dark with paprika, cayenne, thyme pressed firmly into place. It rested beside dirty rice rich with scallions and chicken livers, steam rising slowly from both. It was the kind of food that made you lean back between bites, not because you were full, but because you needed a moment. Theo passed a hurricane daiquiri, the color of a Mississippi sunset. Aya smiled after her first sip and called it dangerous before sliding it down the counter. The kitchen grew warmer, not uncomfortable, just close, intimate. Dessert arrived in powdered sugar and quiet laughter. Beignets torn open, steam escaping in soft bursts. Chicory coffee poured into mismatched mugs. Sugar drifted onto sleeves, onto hands, onto the counter. No one bothered brushing it away. Later, shoes swapped hands the way they always did. Aya slipped into Thel's 500s, just to see. John tested Aya's chucks and laughed at how light they felt. Layla loosened her apron and handed it off when Mara slipped in, wearing Nike Cortez Forrest Gump, leather crease but holding firm. By the time the oysters were empty shells and the mugs sat hollow, the music outside had shifted. Slower now. A trombone line walking the block with patience. They stepped into the alley together, shoes damp against slick brick. Garlic butter lingered on their fingertips. Chicory and rye clung softly to their clothes. The night felt thicker than before, not heavier, just closer. The kind of closeness that only happens in cities that never fully cool down. Down the street, balcony lights flickered on one by one. A couple leaned over wrought iron, listening. A saxophone answered the trombone from somewhere deeper in the quarter. The notes folded into each other like conversation. Leela inhaled slowly. There was salt in the air from the river, sweetness from powdered sugar still resting on her sleeve, smoke from a grill turning somewhere unseen. Behind her, the kitchen door eased shut. The glow narrowed to a thin line and disappeared. June rolled his shoulders, stretching out the heat that had settled there. Aya tugged at oversized laces and laughed softly at how different the borrowed shoes felt. Theo adjusted his jacket collar and glanced toward the corner where the music thickened. No one said much.
They didn't need to.
The quarter had already spoken. It spoke through iron balconies and cracked sidewalks, through cast iron pans that had seen 1,000 meals, through recipes passed hand to hand without ever being written down.
It spoke in heat.
Not the loud kind, not the kind that demands attention, the kind that hums low and steady, the kind that stays in your palms long after the flame is turned off. Leela pressed her fingers together, still catching traces of garlic and lemon. She could feel the echo of the skillet in her hands, the quiet weight of it, the memory of butter foaming, oysters bubbling, redfish searing into its crust. Some cities offer you scenery. Some offer you spectacle. New Orleans offers you temperature. It wraps around you and asks you to feel it fully, to sweat a little, to slow down, to taste slowly, to listen closely. The brass grew fuller at the end of the block. A small crowd gathered where the street opened wider. Light pooled in uneven circles on the pavement. Leela stepped forward first, not chasing the music, just joining it, because nights like this weren't about perfection. They weren't about rules.
They were about heat.
The kind that starts in cast iron, the kind that moves through hands, the kind that settles somewhere deeper than flavor. She turned toward the sound of brass drifting down the street. Heat doesn't always shout. Sometimes it lingers.
Sometimes it waits quietly in the air, in the walls, in the memory of a shared table.
And some heat never cools.
I present to you our final story of the evening, Midnight Mise en place, the sound of the simmer.
It was close to midnight when Leila Moreno pushed open the heavy wooden door at the end of Harbor Row. Outside, the air was cool and salt tinged, the quiet broken only by the faint hum of streetlights. Inside, the space was warm, a low amber glow spilling from the kitchen, carrying with it the perfume of toasted sesame oil and wood smoke.
Her Cookman canvas bib apron was deep hunter green, the brass clasp catching the light as she moved. The hem of her pants skimmed over a pair of Adidas jellyfish by Pharrell, their translucent soles faintly luminous, as if they'd been dipped in ocean water under moonlight. She padded across the tiled floor, every step cushioned, made for long hours.
This wasn't a service night. The tables in the dining room were bare, chairs tucked neatly in, but the kitchen was alive. Alive in the way it only was when the world outside had gone still. This was a night for the simply complex table, a tradition where friends from different crafts gathered to cook without rules and taste without pretense. John Park was already there, stacking a tower of hand-thrown plates whose glaze caught the light like wet river stones. Mara Devine, her camera slung across her chest, leaned against the counter with the easy posture of someone who knew how to wait for the perfect shot. Rico Santiago, smelling faintly of espresso and rye flour, was quietly feeding dough into a banneton at the far end of the room. Theo Branson, the sound engineer, was crouched by a simmering pot, head tilted as though listening to it speak.
Lila didn't announce the night's menu. She let the smells and sounds reveal it slowly. In a cast iron pan, spring onions lay blistering, the edges curling, releasing a sweetness that met the tang of cultured butter. She brushed the hot flatbread with that butter, finishing with the dusting of Aleppo pepper that bloomed red against the golden crust. Steam curled from a deep bowl where a whole snapper lay nestled in ginger soy broth, the flesh just given under the fork. Beside it, paper-thin cucumber threads floated like green ribbons, pickled just enough to brighten each bite. The roasted carrot puree sat in its own quiet glory, a silk-smooth sweep across a wide plate, interrupted only by a scattering of crispy quinoa that popped between the teeth. The cantaloupe and fennel salad was a study in pale greens and soft orange, shaved so thin it seemed to catch light, finished with a drizzle of lime honey and a dust of crushed pistachios.
No one rushed. Between each plate, conversation swelled and settled like the rise and fall of bread in the oven. Mara caught wisps of steam in her lens. Jun cradled each dish like a piece of sculpture. Theo declared that the carrot puree was in the key of A minor, melancholic but balanced. At some point, Rico's loaf emerged from the oven, its crust splitting open with a crackle like fireplace logs. They tore it by hand, dipping pieces into broth, into puree, into whatever was left on their plates. Layla had switched into a short-sleeve houndstooth chef shirt, her sneakers catching the light again as she moved. When the chocolate olive oil cake appeared, the room grew quiet. The knife sank into it with no resistance, the crumb holding like it knew where it belonged. A pinch of smoked salt hit the tongue, just as the richness bloomed, the creme fraiche melting like snow. By now, the counters were scattered with wine glasses, teacups, scraps of paper scribbled with ideas. Theo recorded the sound of forks against ceramic, murmuring something about a 3 a.m. note, warm, low, and content. Someone brewed roasted barley tea, pouring it into mismatched mugs. The air in the room had thickened with the scent of cocoa, sesame, citrus, and heat. Nobody talked about work. Nobody watched the clock. They spoke of glaze techniques, of the sound of butter hitting a hot pan, of sneakers that felt like memory foam for the soul. When the night wound down, they packed each other small gifts: a hunk of bread wrapped in parchment, a spoonful of carrot puree and a ramekin, a corner of chocolate cake for breakfast. Outside, the streets were empty, the puddles from an earlier rain reflecting the glow of string lights in the alley. Lila stepped into the quiet, the soles of her jellyfish sneakers leaving soft prints on the damp pavement. Her hand smelled faintly of sesame and smoke. It struck her then. These nights weren't about recipes or plating or even the food alone. They were about what happened when the right people, the right textures, the right sounds all came together in the same room. She smiled, tucking her hands into her apron pocket, and started the walk home. The city was asleep, but she carried the hum of the simmer with her, long after the last dish had been washed. Remember, some heat never cools. And if tonight's story carried you somewhere,
If the simmer slowed your breathing,
if the streets softened around you, if sleep found you a little easier,
we're grateful you're here.
thank you for spending your midnight with us. If this brought you peace, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next city, the next kitchen, the next quiet flame. Tap like so this story can travel farther than we ever could alone. Share it with someone who needs rest, someone who carries too much heat from the day.
And in the morning, if you wake rested, leave us a comment.
Let us know if this story helped you sleep. Your words help others find their way here. Until the next table is set, until the next pan warms slowly in the dark, rest deeply. Because wherever we travel next, some heat never cools.